Hi, I'm Justin Crosby and welcome to another telecast. So as the global TV industry's thoughts turn to Mipcom Cannes in October, our guests on this week's Mipcom 2024 preview show are Elisa Carbonell, CEO of ICEX Trade and Investment, the public institution that drives the prosperity of the Spanish economy through internationalisation, and former president of NBC Universal Studios, USA Network and Columbia Pictures TV, and now boss of Future Shack Entertainment, Jeff Wachtel. We're delighted that our upcoming livestream show of all 3 days of Mipcom is supported by Shooting in Spain, a brand of ICEX Spain Trade and Investment, and funded by the EU Next Generation Funds, Government of Spain, and ITV Studios. First up, here's Jeff Wachtel. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Telecast, Jeff. How are you doing?
Excellent. Lovely to see you, Justin.
Thank you for joining us from LA. It's not often we get guests from LA, so we should be doing a lot more of that. But wonderful to have you on the show. And we're going to be chatting about Future Shack, your business, and 2 new premium drama shows that you've got coming to market very soon. But before we get to that, I'm really keen to talk about your views on the TV industry, because you're obviously an enormously experienced executive and you must have seen it all in your time at various different major studios. So obviously recently we've seen really significant changes, particularly with the rise of streaming platforms. How do you see the traditional TV model evolving in response to those changes?
Well, first I should say, yes, I may be experienced, but I'm either a very experienced or I'm a grumpy old man. So we'll have to see which way. And thank you for having me on Telecast. I'm very proud to be the 202nd guest on Telecast, and hopefully the 203rd one will also be a lot of fun. No matter how expert, it's always a specific point of view. I'll tell you. For me, I've always pushed back when people say that it's a revolutionary time in our business. When the DVR hit and my people are recording television now and it's going to change everything radically. It's like, well, yeah, but it's more of an evolution. Now it is a bit of a revolution. I think streaming is throughout the model and we're still feeling the effects. In fact, the extraordinary bubble and the whole peak TV of it all in 500 television series on premium high-end channels. Now we're experiencing a what I think you can call a depression. Economists say that when an economy drops 30%, that's the technical definition of a depression, and we're going through that right now. So first, this amazing land of opportunity, then one of those things where, bumblebees, how do they fly? It doesn't really make sense. For a while, the industry was, wait, this doesn't make sense. How can you pay people this much? How can you spend this much on a show? It doesn't seem to sustain. And then that proved to be the case. So, there's a revolution, things are evolving, but you almost could say that things are revolving right now, in that things do seem to be moving back to some version of, I might say, sanity in terms of production level and expectations, and also taste. It was a really interesting thing that right when streaming hit, which was positive and negative, another thing happened that in the U.S. business that I think was basically positive, which was the U.S. started to learn from the U.K. I embraced that when I moved to London and tried to import it back to the States, but I didn't need to. It was already happening. UK television for years and years and years has been authored, let's not chase some spectral pot of gold. Let's just make the show. And then if it works, we'll make another one. Even the vocabulary reflects that. In the US, we talk about seasons. In the UK, one talks about series. In other words, I've done the series. Now let's see if there's another series there. How many episodes should it be? In the US, it was, well, we have to get to 100 episodes for syndication to make $1 billion. And in the UK and other European markets, but with the UK really driving it, it was no writer. How many episodes do you see here? And the writer would say, well, I think it's about 8. And then the BBC or ITV would go, okay, let's do 8. And I think that led to a level of quality, certainly higher quality for the money that was being spent. And it just kind of shifted the perspective when the American market started to say, oh, why don't we do it that way? And the streamers enabled that, and binging enabled that, because now it was, okay, well, let's do 8 and you can watch it all at once. Big swing that way to what people started to call prestige TV or premium TV, which was superstar actor or actress, high-end, maybe novel or underlying rights, and let's just do a few episodes, throw it out there. And that was the way that the streamers started to acquire subscribers, which was the primary metric. Let's build the subscription base. What nobody was really talking about was that more than 50% of viewership on streamers is library. So bright, shiny object, Nicole Kidman in a big miniseries or limited series gets you in the door, but then you finished it, and now what are you going to do? And that's where the algorithm, the recommendation engines, and that comes in. And the kind of quiet secret of the streamers was, well, people actually stick around to watch these shows that we've acquired that some broadcast or cable network has made. That was a secret until about a year ago, when something wonderful happened. A show that I had worked on called Suits exploded on Netflix and took everybody by surprise. I mean, billions and billions of minutes of Suits was watched, enough that it really kind of shook things up. And maybe the market was ready for it. And now we're kind of experiencing, I'd say, a relatively slow but a real pendulum swing of interest back to the future, back to what were the shows that really engaged an audience and did what television does and really maybe no other medium does, which is engage an audience over time. So the bright, shiny object of binging was a lot of fun. Oh my God, I can have everything everywhere all at once. And especially for a younger audience. But I'm fortunate to have 2 kids in their 20s who keep me informed and honest. And they don't love the binging model so much anymore, because the other side of binging is you watch it all and now you got to wait a year and a half for the next round. And they are very active in viewership, and they're on TikTok and Instagram, etc. And they also are people, and people like to be entertained, and people like to be told stories. And my daughter right now is rewatching actually another show I worked on, Psych. And that's what she and her friends come home and they enjoy sitting back and watching a Bravo series or a nice scripted show. So it's a fascinating time, because the streamers quite literally exploded the marketplace and changed all the rules. Some positive, some less positive, and now we're dealing with the kind of the remnants of that, and trying to, in some ways, kind of piece back together an ecosystem.
Yeah, we could go on for a long time, I'm sure, talking about the industry and how YouTube is affecting things now more than ever, and you mentioned social media, lots of different networks and different platforms that are also vying for the attention of the viewer and pulling a lot of them away from traditional TV. But when we talk about technology and new developments, particularly over the last 18 months, 2 years, AI has obviously become increasingly influential in various sectors, including media and entertainment. How do you foresee AI impacting content creation and curation in the TV industry?
It scares me. Maybe it scares me because, back to the grumpy old man thing, I don't completely understand it, and I think of AI as, the beginning of the end in some ways. Um, I think it may simply change everything, including the singularity, in which case there simulacrums or whatever it's called of us 10 years. We don't even exist doing this. Who needs that? I can just program somebody to sound like they know about the business. So far, AI seems to, from what I've seen, it does slightly less good versions of what we do, which can save a lot of time. If you don't really need something spectacular, if it's a redraft of a legal agreement, then have AI do it. Most of the time, when I've seen ChatGPT and others, and it's quite scary at first, right? It's like write a script about two lawyers on the moon, and it will do it, but it's not really quite there yet. It's a little bit like when AI creates images of people, and everything's fine except the eyes aren't quite alive. There's still something that human about pure work, not AI-driven work. But honestly, Justin, I don't know. It's so new. I think writers and actors are legitimately concerned. Background actors are legitimately in a panic. It actually does duplicate background perfectly well. So there's kind of no need for those people who sit around on the lawn chairs and get $75 a day to be in the background of a scene. That feels like an industry or part of the industry that's over and out. In terms of the pure technology, I'm just not that well versed in it. I'm a little bit less worried on the writing side, because I think what separates great material from average material, that is the individuation, is the person behind it, so far at least. And that's what people watch. People will come to something that's really special. On the other hand, that's what I know. And so, of course, I'd be an advocate for that kind of older version of creation, because it's what I love. I'm kind of an anecdotal person. When I talk about a TV show I love, I tend to talk about one very cool moment that has happened that I adore. And I don't know that AI is capable of finding that one moment.
Yeah. And so you're not actively using it in your production processes to this point?
Not in the parts of production that I have anything to do with, but I don't have much to do with the dubbing and the mixing and whatever. So there's probably a lot of below the line stuff that's happening, and where there are time and cost savings to be found with AI. It hasn't impacted my day to day yet.
Yeah. So now, as a content producer, I mean, having spent a large part of your career running networks, some of the biggest networks out there, as a content producer, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing content producers today, particularly in what we see as this really fragmented media landscape?
The short term challenge is fear. Because we're in a time of retrenchment, post bubble, people are legitimately fearful of their jobs more than of the potential failure of the project they're working on. And I think people in the mix are forgetting that there's an American image that I use. The greatest baseball player in the world steps up to the plate and knows that he'll be in the Hall of Fame if 3 out of 10 times he gets on base. And that means that 7 out of 10 times he knows, in the major leagues, making millions and millions of dollars, he's going to fail. That's part of the game. And part of the game of creating wonderful shows, and I've started to push back on the word content, because it seems to be a little too programmatic and computer generated, and a streamer thing that is not a positive thing, because content just feels like fluff, pablum.
It's
television
like the
show.
word product, isn't it? It's sort
It's
of
like,
it boils it down to just something that doesn't speak to the love and the creativity of what's being created.
and the contract that a viewer and audience makes with the show creator. Nobody's forcing you to sit down and watch television. You do it because it's pleasurable, because you're finding something new and fun and unique and rewarding. And yeah, content feels like, taking a napkin out of the drawer, or whatever. But there it is, and I'll probably use it myself, in the next half hour. So there are, of course, there are many. I mean, if this was easy, everybody would do it. Um, I think the biggest challenge in getting things going right now is fear, and not accepting that failure is just part of the game. So as a buyer, or as before that and then after that as a seller, I knew that when I engaged with an idea, best case scenario, everybody is in. It's wonderful work, it's a tremendous idea. We're still never better than 50-50 that it's going to actually kind of come together. People, because I've had some success, people talk about, well, what was your formula at USA Network and other places? And maybe I'm too restrictive about semantics, but I push back on that, because I don't think you can have a formula. I think you can have, if it's not too fine a point, a recipe. So I think you can put ingredients together, and hopefully there's a little bit of artistry to that. And then you pop it in the oven and you open it up and you hope that you've got something great. It's not a scientific formula. And one of the biggest challenges right now, I do think, is that maybe some younger people in the game, and also just people who are legitimately afraid that if they fail, they will be fired, are no longer embracing. And it sounds weird to say embracing failure, but they're no longer embracing the fact that most things in our world just don't work. And some of the stupidest ideas you've ever heard turn into some of the best shows. A friend of mine who's now running Apple, but was at the time in charge of Sony, likes to joke that the worst pitch in the world he ever heard was about a high school chemistry teacher in a relatively unattractive American city who had cancer and an unhappy marriage and a handicapped child and a very unhappy life. And in order to make money, started cooking meth and became a drug dealer. And he heard that and he went, I mean, literally, that is the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. And it happened to be an idea that a brilliant writer named Vince Gilligan had come up with. And the studio went, I don't know, Vince must know what he's talking about. And this little network called AMC, which was a small enough network that they were willing to take big chances, said, I don't know, let's give it a shot. And it became Breaking Bad, which is, arguably one of the 10 best shows in history. So you just don't know, and you have to risk it. So that's number one, is the fear factor. The other thing is, production scale has gotten out of control, and once you blow up the balloon, it's very hard to deflate it. So actors who were making $50,000 an episode are now making $500,000 an episode, and good for them, and good for their agents and managers and lawyers. But it's inflated the system in many ways beyond reason, which just makes it tough to deliver quality at scale. One of the little things that we're trying to do with Future Shack is, help in our small way reset that. It's nice to have a lot of money, but you don't really need $50 million an episode to make a great television series. So we're working on that. And in a sad way, but a real way, the writer strikes and COVID and the general contraction of the market is starting to help people come back to a more reasonable place in terms of production cost. But right now, it's very tough. There's a general inflation of above and below the line costs that just kind of make the economic model very challenging.
Yeah. Now, Jeff, you've had incredibly impressive career from leading USA Network NBCU cable group, which includes Bravo, Sci-Fi, E, Oxygen, president of NBC Universal International Studios, and now your current role at Future Shack. What have been some of the most significant lessons that you've learned along the way that you can share with listeners?
I guess it's I mean, it's the perpetual question, and it's if I had to boil it down, I might say two opposing things. One is listen to research and be open to algorithmic answers, etc. But really, kind of at the end of the process, just trust your gut. Just you believe. It's a human business. The algorithms are incredibly impressive, and maybe that is part of the AI thing that I honestly just don't understand. But something happened, for example, with Suits at Netflix, that was part of their algorithm. Suits was available on Peacock always after we aired it, but no one was watching. And then it was on Netflix. All of a sudden, something about that system triggered success. So there is that. But really, early days in a project, you have to believe. And one of the articles of faith that I had at USA and that I try to bring to bear at Future Shack is one person's passion should overrule everybody else's diffidence. If there's somebody who is going to really carry it and take the shot and believe in it, then everyone should kind of defer and say, all right, how can we service the vision? Another thing is, unless you're the genius, find the genius and support the genius and support their idea. Be an editor, be a publisher, be a friend. Don't be a pushover. But ultimately, unless you're writing it, you're directing it, find somebody that you trust and then enable their vision. The other side of it, though, is listen and accept when you're wrong, because we're all wrong a lot, and allow for those mistakes and don't run away from them. I think it's great when somebody else tells you, something and you go no, and then you learn, oh wait, I guess they were right. Some of my happiest experiences have been being proven wrong. So it's kind of a balance between stand up for what you really believe and fight and have the passion, and then be willing to acknowledge when the argument goes the other way.
So, Jeff, Future Shack Entertainment. Tell us the vision behind Future Shack and how it differentiates itself in the current media landscape.
None of this is rocket science, okay? I mean, Justin, we all are just trying to do what we do. You have telecast is a wonderful thing, which is informed to a large extent by your personality. It's not the only time industry experts weigh in on stuff. You just try to make it special. So we're not reimagining the business. With Future Shack, I was fortunate to have a couple of really lovely fellas come to me and say we could raise a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of money, and kind of hang out a shingle. And the theory was that we were going to approach the market in kind of three different levels. One was high-end IP, and that thing that we were talking about, the big streamer superstar project, a big book, a major star, holy cow, and and actually go to the streamers and do the cost plus thing, which is a very nice way for a company to realize some immediate profit. At a larger company, that's a challenge because it's the long-term upside that feeds the Columbias and Warner Brothers. For a little company, making a few $1,000,000 in fees is not such a bad thing. So that was one part. The other part was just traditional development, doing what I do, doing what I love doing, just finding something cool, finding a writer that maybe a lot of other people haven't seen quite yet, and shepherding them into a greater success. And then the third tier was something that I spent a lot of time doing, first at USA, or actually even before that, and then specifically in my role as the head of the international studio, which was finding shows that might seem local, but which had global value. So I was very lucky to be working with some great people in London. A wonderful young writer named Nita Mansour had an idea that was a little bit scary to the traditional company, which was about a all-female Muslim punk band. I know that my distribution folks were like, I don't think so. But it was just great. And she was a gem. And we did a show called Lady Parts, which was in large part enabled by an American sale. Channel 4 were phenomenal advocates fearless advocates for the show, and had, resources. We might have been able to make a version of the show, but probably not the version that Nita wanted to make. So how do you put the different pieces together around the world and find a show that may be generated out of Canada, but might have global value? That was the third leg. So big IP, kind of regular traditional development, and let's kind of do the jigsaw puzzle of trying to put a few pieces together. Somewhat to my surprise, the two shows that moved forward most quickly were in that category. And so we've started to lean more into that. We bring a not unique, but maybe a special skill set to that way of doing things, because it involves taste, finding somebody great, who Anita or John Quaintance, who's the writer for our show Good Cop, Bad Cop, who's an experienced writer, but has never quite had the shot to run his own show before, and then empowering them. So it's taste. It's a little bit of an ability. My kids say that I'm very cheap. That's probably true. It may not be a great feature as a parent, but it's not a bad thing when you're starting a production company.
So, well, obviously you've had a fantastic success, and you're bringing two shows to market with ITV Studios. Murder in a Small Town. You mentioned Good Cop, Bad Cop. Let's talk about Murder in a Small Town first of all. Tell us about the cast, the writers, how that project came together.
It's almost a testament to passion over time. There were some wonderful books written 30 odd years ago, the Allberg mysteries, Canadian mysteries. And some people know about them, fans of the genre do. A script was commissioned by a producer named Nick Orchard, a wonderful writer who is not a young man, but honestly I had never heard of, named Ian Weir. Wrote a script, and they took it out as a movie. Donald Sutherland was interested, and it looked like it might happen, but then it didn't. Flash forward 25 or 30 years later, Nick is still in the business, still flogging this script, sends it to another producer. She sends it to me, and I went, this is good. This is a murder mystery, but there's wonderful writing, and it's a little unexpected. There's this delightful romance in the middle of it that is unnecessary, but actually what I think is the kind of heart and soul of the show. Kind of like this one. Brought it into my team. One of my partners is a very bright lady named Frances Manfredi, who was the head of domestic distribution at NBCU, and she's come on board as our producer for kind of like strategic and distribution things. She sent it to the head of acquisitions at Fox. We've got a movie. Would you be interested? We could probably make it in Canada for a good price. He said, I love this one. Could you do 3 of them? And we said, yeah, sure. He said, do you mind if I get it over to the creative team? And we said, sure. And there's some wonderful people at the creative team, including someone who, excuse me, I used to work with named Michael Thorne. And he and his crew went, wow, we kind of like this one, and it's Canadian, and there's a writer's strike going on. Could you make this in Canada in case the strike continues? And we said, sure. And he said, well, let's do 8 episodes. And we started the process. And then it just became a regular series, and we went out for the best cast. What happened in a just kind of a, I don't know, a sweet and unexpected way was there happens to be a wonderful Canadian actor named Rossif Sutherland, who is in his 40s and tall and good looking and has a kind of shaggy, warm appeal, plays damaged characters very well, and but has a real kind of strength of character. And he was great. And we went, okay, this is amazing, because Dad was going to do it 30 years ago, and now you can do it, which was just kind of a lovely story. Actually, when I got the script 2 or so years ago, Donald was still attached, but he was attached as the prime suspect in the first episode crime. There's an older guy who may or may not have whacked somebody on the head. Sadly, Donald's health deteriorated over time. He wasn't able to do it. But when I read it, it was read the script because Donald Sutherland's going to play the bad guy. I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. That didn't happen, but the project was strong enough that we were able to just move forward with it anyway. And then in a very sweet way, Rossif was the right guy. We brought in an actress who I had known as being very beautiful, but a little icy maybe in her previous work, named Kristen Kruk. She was well known for her work on Smallville. And I always thought she was great. She wanted to do this part because it's a much more dimensional character. It's a woman who's fled the big city, moved to a small town. She doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, but she's not quite of that town. She's a little too well dressed, a little too well educated. You kind of go like, what are you doing as the librarian in this kind of, pleasant little backwater resort? And both of these two interesting, damaged, grown-up characters find each other. And while there's the traditional, I believe this show would work on ITV. It's a very wonderful, straightforward murder mystery. Gorgeous town, beautiful mountains, mist flowing off them, cut to the dead body. Oh my God, who did the murder? In the pilot script, the next scene after establishing shot and dead body is a date, is our two principal characters who have met online, neither of whom are that eager to do it, but both of whom have been told by their friends, you got to start to get out there and see somebody. So they're doing this kind of, I don't know, awkward dance, and it's funny and it's real. And Kristen and Rossif in our chemistry read, it was magic. They just were poking each other and making each other better, and they were delightful. So if it works, we have a show that it kind of punches above its weight. On some level, the promos and what you might be showing now are going to be murder, town, whatever. Agatha Christie feel. I do think that the kind of heart and soul of this show is the growth of these two wonderful people who are finding each other and kind of reclaiming their lives. And it's not a simple romance. It's not like, oh, they meet, they fall in love, they get married. It goes up and down. So while every week there is a happy resolution to the crime, okay, if somebody did something bad, our guys figure it out. Every week there's some uncertainty about what's going to happen with this relationship, which has its ups and downs.
And it's important to say that it's a procedural crime series as well, isn't it? It's different cases every week.
Different cases every week. In many ways, it kind of fits a mold of a certain type of successful show that I've had some experience with on shows like Monk. And the world has loved with Inspector Morse and Vera and many other British, German, American, Canadian series where the audience has satisfaction. If I tune in the show, by the end of the episode, I'm going to be satisfied that they got their man or woman.
Yeah. Okay.
But in the middle of it is this delightful romance.
Well, let's take a look at the trailer. It launches on the 24th of September on Fox in the US and Chorus in Canada, and it kicks off with a 90-minute episode. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Something about small towns. You get to be who you are. I'm Carl Olberg, Chief of Police.
How are your murders?
Unsolved. Everyone confesses sooner or later to somebody. I just thought there might be something you'd like to tell me.
Well, you thought wrong, Sonny.
I can always tell when somebody's lying to me.
So we saw James Cromwell. From Succession, amongst many other shows in there. So there are some other guest stars in there, Jeff, as well, that are really notable actors in their own right.
Yes, and we tried to cast a little bit against type. Paula Patton, who is a wonderful actress who's done a lot of very sexy roles in thrillers, Mission Impossible, etc., plays a kind of a Black Widow psychiatrist. Noah Reid, who was a fan favorite on Schitt's Creek as Dan Levy's boyfriend, plays a character who may not be quite as nice as he appears. And James Cromwell was a wish list thing. Justin, when you're making up your cast lists, at the top of the list, you do who's your dream candidate? And then we'll work down from that. So in the role that Donald was going to have played, we made our dream list. And I said, okay, who would my dream? I don't know. Yeah, James Cromwell. That would be the perfect guy for this. But, he's not doing a guest shot on Fox. So, no. And then I said, well, maybe the writing's really good. And in this case, I was fortunate. One of the nice things about having done it for a while is if you've done your job well, you've developed some friends and some relationships and sometimes have had success together. James' agent, it turned out to be somebody I knew quite well. Lovely lady named Chris Schmidt. I said, listen, she said, I don't think so, but he loves material. Send him the script. So I did, and he read it, and he said, let me talk to the writer and the director, and they got along well. And he said, listen, I do need a longer bed. I'm 6'5", so my only demand is I need a bed that I can sleep on. We can take care of that. And he was just spectacular. Of course, he's a wonderful actor, but he's a delightful man. And this was a rigorous role. He's an 85-year-old guy. He was towing a boat out of the water and having a physical confrontation. So it was a demanding part. And he, we were just incredibly lucky to get him. I will say also he was, he has a high quote, certainly above what we had expected a guest role to be on our show. And that's when the partnership works. I went to Michael and Fox and said, I think we can get him. Wouldn't that be great for the pilot? But, we need some help. And they paid what's called breakage, where they shared the additional above budget cost with us, as they did on some of the other roles as the show progressed.
All right, fantastic. Well, it looks beautiful. It's set on the Pacific coastline as well, isn't it? And it's a returnable series as well, potentially. There are other novels to adapt.
From your lips to God's ear. The idea is for this to be a truly returnable, sustainable show. A little bit in what we were talking about, which is the swing back to shows that will fill up the library. They will perform, as shows have done, a dual function. This is back to the industry, so pardon my rambling, but one of the things that happened with streamers was we're so rich, we're going to buy out everything forever. And Netflix is going to own the rights in perpetuity. And I don't think so, but I'll give you more money than you ever dreamed possible. It's like, oh, well, in that case, okay. So the major studios had a challenge, which is you want to lean into the possibility of a Game of Thrones or something that'll break out and make you countless wealth. But the other thing is, if I can cash a big check right now, that makes my bottom line look pretty good. And it was very, very attractive when Netflix, Amazon, Apple came in with that. The other thing is, well, where is Netflix going to get its next Suits from? And it can't grow it all internally. So it's going to need product from elsewhere. So if we're fortunate and Murder in a Small Town clicks with the audience, It will sustain on Fox. It'll serve its primary goal, that its primary network. It will do well for ITV around the world. And then, knock wood, 3, 4, 5 seasons in, Netflix, Amazon, others say, oh, perfect. We need this one as part of our library.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that sounds a good plan.
See.
Yeah, well, all the best with that. And I know, as I say, ITV Studios is bringing that to market very soon. And your other project, Good Cop, Bad Cop, is also another 8-hour series. Tell us about that.
So when I was at USA, we found a certain sweet spot with our programming, which has been labeled blue sky, which isn't quite accurate, but it spoke to the kind of fun, aspirational nature of the characters in the world. And we rode that horse for a while. We had a number of successes, more than we ever dreamed we would. So it started with Monk and Psych, and it carried through shows like White Collar and Burn Notice, and all the way through Suits. At which point we started to think maybe we've played this out about as far as we can. What else can we do? And so we engaged in, at first, a somewhat awkward but ultimately successful shift to slightly darker programming. Our joke was like gray skies. And Mr. Robot was one of the more successful ones that came out of that. A great show with Jessica Biel called The Sinner. And we found another way to do character-based shows that weren't quite as light in their framing. Right around then, a great script came in that we had developed called Good Cop, Bad Cop, which had all the hallmarks of a traditional USA Network success, but kind of came in at the wrong time. Senior management was saying, yeah, leave those behind. Let's move to this new type of programming. So ultimately, we just didn't get to make it. Flash forward 10, 12 years, a very bright agent at CAA knew I had started this company, knew that I was interested in reviving some of that blue sky type of show, and said, you always loved this one. I went, you're right. So we reacquired it. I sold it to a very small network in the States called Roku, whose what's the expression? Their ambition exceeds their resources a little bit. So they developed it, said, we'd like to make it, but we really can't afford to make it. Can we find a partner? And I was fortunate to, I sent it to a fellow named Brad Schwartz, who would be great on your show. He is delightful and funny and smart and a real character. And he said, I love this one. Can we actually take the first window and have Roku step into the second window? Roku was able to do that. So I had a US sale, CW Roku, a little bit unconventional, 2 different networks, but they don't really overlap. And in today's world, pure ownership is less important than putting something into the market that you can claim. Yeah. So they were both fine with that. And we were fine with it because that's more eyeballs. But it's a jigsaw puzzle, and they don't have the money together even that a traditional network does. So then the job really started. Couldn't afford to make it in Canada even. Went to Australia, met with a wonderful company there called Jungle. And then the thing really clicked when I met with this woman named Amanda Duthie, another person who you should definitely have on the show. She's quite brilliant. She's the head of programming for a little network called Stan.
Send them our way.
I will do. I mean, you would love her. Anyway, she said, yeah, let's do this one. So with the enhanced tax credits available in Australia, with an Australian network buying it, and then with ITV coming in and saying, we like this one. And it's, I think in some small way, maybe my legacy of success with shows like White Collar and, those were, this might be another one of those. So ITV stepped in, not just as a distributor, but actually as a studio partner. And then you do the tightrope walk. I get 4 sets of notes. So Roku, CW, ITV, and Stan all weigh in.
Do they really give you notes, Jeff? I mean, 4 sets of notes, really?
Yeah. Stan, not so much. Amanda is an artist herself, and she trusts us and is like, we love it. And she's a few things, but not much. CW and Roku, one of the things, and I hope I don't make anybody upset by saying it, it doesn't really matter how much a network puts in. They think that they're paying for the whole thing. So even if they're investing 5 or 10%, they're very involved. So yeah,
they want to give the notes of 100% partner. Yeah,
that's right. And John has been magical. He's, the notion showrunner is different in different places. It's really an American idea. In Europe, it's more collaborative. I did a show called Hannah on Amazon. There were 3 or 4 people who managed the creative life of that show. Murder in a Small Town doesn't have a traditional showrunner. It has a head writer. There's a director on set. And then our company is empowered as kind of a non-writing producer. Good Cop's a little bit more traditional. John really is the key creative lead on that show. And Jungle, very, very invested in it. And Good Cop is, I have a kind of a quiet love for this show. It's just different and quirky and funny and unexpected. There's a big open door. It's a cop show, again, a repeatable procedural. There are crimes. The crimes in this case are more like chopping down an apple tree than, serial killers. But bad people do bad things and good people get hurt, and our cops have to figure out what's going on. This show is really more a family show. So one of the things I think makes a series work is some thematic strength. If in Murder, it's about this wonderful relationship. In Good Cop, it's about a family coming together. So it's a brother or sister with a love-hate relationship and their dad who's just trying to heal the family. And it makes you laugh.
All right. And that's due to air in early 2025, isn't it?
Yes.
On Roku and the CW.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll keep our eyes out for that one. And again, that's ITV Studios who's bringing that to market, as you mentioned. Jeff, a couple of other questions. I know you've got to go very soon. A couple of other questions before you go. So we are seeing, consumer behavioural shifts, particularly amongst younger audiences. How is that influencing the way you approach content development and distribution, if at all?
It's another great question, Justin. The world shifting so fast is something you'd be crazy not to acknowledge. In some ways, it's something that you can't really quite deal with. I mean, you can't out YouTube. You can't out TikTok. My family just had a vacation in Hawaii. We went to the top of Mauna Kea. We're 14,000 feet high. I'm mildly oxygen deprived, waiting for the sunset, and in this spectacular lunar landscape. And I look up, and in the top of the hill, there are 3 kids doing TikTok dances. And I'm thinking, okay, that's something I wouldn't have seen a few years ago. And they're putting it out there. And I promise you, thousands of people will have spent valuable minutes of their day watching these kids do TikTok dances at the top of one of the
Doing
great
that.
Yeah. So there it is. It's eating into attention spans and availability of hours. I think it would be a mistake to try to create like interactive, detective shows. I don't think it's about that. I think if it doesn't sound too old-fashioned, on some level, sticking to the knitting and really just creating wonderful, fun, memorable characters who will sustain and who can speak to you because they do something that speaks to you as a grown-up and as a child. Psych, which I'm not sure if you ever saw, it's a show that we stopped production on that show 10 years ago. There's still college viewing parties because Sean, the lead character, is Peter Pan. He's a perpetual adolescent. And what he does speaks to 14-year-olds when we made the show and 14-year-olds who are watching now. So I think there's some things that are true and wonderful about just the pure storytelling. And in part, I think not chasing the phantom, not trying to be something that you're not, is if it doesn't sound too curmudgeonly, is really very important. So one of the lessons is you do you. Knock it out of the park. Have a great time on YouTube. At some point, I know you love watching TV, and that's what we're about. So it's not dismissing that that's a very active part of the world and taking up much more attention and even audience segments. There are people who would much rather game or create their own thing. And I think for me, it's the best thing is it's feeding ideas. Oh my, look at that. That was a kind of a crazy little thing on YouTube. Maybe there's something to be made of it. Look at her. She's kind of brilliant. Maybe she wants to do a different type of story or be the lead in a story. So for me, it's as much an incubator as anything.
Okay. And finally, Jeff, and thank you for being so generous with your time, but I'm going to ask you to cast your mind forward 5 years, which is a pretty difficult ask, I must admit. But where do you see the TV industry heading in 5 years' time? It feels a long way away, 5 years, a lot longer than 5 years has ever felt away, I think. But where do you see TV industry heading in 5 years?
Thanks for the prologue because, 5 months, like who knows, right? And it never, the one thing that we're sure of is that the pace of change is accelerating. So of course, with that caveat, it does feel like things are moving towards a number of mega creators who do seem to have more of a corporate bias. So does Amazon really care if their TV shows work? Yeah, I think they do, but let's face it, they're in service of a $3 trillion company.
Yeah.
So I think over time, we're going to see a slimming. I think it'll be 4 or 5, maybe, mega creation entities. And then, because anytime things kind of calcify into a big system, there's always the little zippity-doo-dah boats that, zoom around, and success does tend to come from those places more than from the major institutions. But I do think we're moving towards a more corporate and institutional bias for content creation. Just because you and I don't like the word doesn't mean it's going away.
Yeah.
People are thinking about things in terms of content. Content does tend to be servicing some other agenda, and that's not going away.
Yeah.
So I think most stuff is going to be like that. And then I pray that in the middle of that world, there's going to be Breaking Bad. And the little ones that no one was expecting. Was anybody really expecting the bear? No, we weren't. And yet there it is. And that's the wonder, is these, incredible people who get some level of financing so that they can tell their story broadly. So they're poets in some ways, using limited resources until, like I promise you, the 3rd season of The Bear cost 5 times what the 1st season cost. But at first, it's like, prove it, you're a startup. Even when I was running USA Network, and we were pretty successful and we were producing over $1 billion of profit a year, but the model was, let's go in every day as a startup. We're a big company, but we didn't get here by presuming that we knew everything. Let's be out on the lookout for the new voice, the new approach. And then when you find a guy who just graduated from AFI, who has this notion about a hacker in a hoodie who wants to take down the world. And if you're really rolling the dice, you cast somebody who may not look like a traditional star named Rami Malek, who becomes a big star, but you do it by taking the risk. So I think the world is moving towards a kind of a more consolidation, but I still think that the great stuff is going to come from that fun, fiery individual voice.
Yeah, great creativity. There's nothing that can stifle that, right? It'll always find a way to come through. Jeff, thank you so much for being with us. Really enjoyed our time with you. Good luck with those two shows and everything else you're doing over at Future Shack. And I hope to meet you in person sometime. Maybe you'll be in Mipcom, or will you be
Well, I
over
will
in
be
the
over in
UK?
Content London. We're coming over in November, so I'll ask Emily and we can connect. And you're so good. I love this thing, and I love how you've taken your world of PR and turned it into a broader platform. It's really fun, and of course, I watched some of the shows before we did this. So,
Oh, great.
congrats on the success, and let's connect again.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jeff. All the best and best of luck with everything. My next guest on this week's show is Elisa Carbonell, CEO of ICEX Spain Trade and Investment. ICEX is dedicated to promoting the prosperity of Spain through internationalisation. They achieve this by supporting Spanish companies in their global development and assisting foreign companies looking to invest in Spain. Spanish companies aiming to expand internationally often face three main challenges: accessing intelligence, establishing relevant contacts, and acquiring talent. To address these challenges, ICEX provides high-quality information and business intelligence through their extensive network of over 100 offices worldwide. Their on-ground teams gather vital and relevant information to assist companies in making informed decisions. Networking is another cornerstone of their support. ICEX organizes an impressive average of 4 events every day across the globe to foster quality contacts and business opportunities. And ICEX is committed to cultivating talent. In 2023 alone, they trained over 1,400 young professionals in international trade, strengthening the private sector's capabilities in global markets. We join Elisa in an exclusive discussion ahead of Mipcom, where Spain is country of honor, starting with an overview of the Spanish TV sector, how it's performing on a global level, and the reason for its success.
With regards to the overview of the global sector, as you know, the demand for content has grown significantly in recent years, but at the same time, so have production standards and the budgets needed to get a green light. Also, platforms are more selective in choosing content, and obviously the audience is much more demanding now. In this context, Spain creativity and talent, I think, is making the difference by being able to adapt content to market trends without losing quality or relevance. Spanish companies have been able to produce many national and international hits, and in a wide variety of formats and genres. This, I think, speaks out for our potential. Also, during the last 3 years, you said it yourself, there has been an increase in public support through the plan Spain Audiovisual Hub of Europe, which boosts the Spain audiovisual ecosystem by promoting international awareness of its quality, strengthening and training talent, attracting foreign investment, and reducing administrative costs as much as possible. This effort, I think, has proved to be very timely since, as we have said, the market is undergoing profound changes. No? But looking forward, we are fully committed to the audiovisual industry, which we consider strategic because it is of global nature, as is ICEX. Its capacity to generate high-value employment and attract investment, its potential for modernization through digitalization, and because we believe our country is really talented for successing in this industry.
Yeah, well, there's certainly no doubt about that. Now, Mipcom Country of Honor for Spain in 2024. Tell us about why Spain is Mipcom Country of Honor and why now?
Okay, so as a result of what we have already said, Spain audiovisual industry is attracting the attention of the global content industry. Spain is becoming a major hub for audiovisual production in Europe, as shown by the increasing quantity of content being produced here. No? Spain right now ranks second in Europe, only after the UK, in production of TV fiction commissioned by global streamers. On film production, it has increased in Spain by more than 46% since 2019. And most importantly, production by Spanish creators are being watched all over the world, with Spanish content consistently ranking among the most viewed worldwide. No, Spanish productions are gaining increased recognition and receiving a growing number of awards. In general, audience demand for Spanish content has tripled in 5 years. I think you would agree with me that this can only be driven by the excellent quality of our productions, right? So, on this context, the upcoming edition of Mipcom will bring the perfect opportunity to celebrate such excellence, creativity, and professionalism of the Spanish content industry. No, being the country of honor will allow us to show how strong the Spanish industry is and will help Spanish audiovisual ecosystem to keep thriving, generating value, and telling extraordinary stories. So there are some trivia facts that I found very enlightening. No, Spanish productions are among the most successful content in terms of audience for the main over-the-top platforms worldwide. According, for example, to data provided by Parrot, now the top 3 most in-demand TV shows worldwide in Spanish language are productions originated in Spain. These are Berlin, Zorro, and The Red Queen. Berlin is a spin-off of Money Heist, another success. It has already achieved 11 million views. So it is amazing, no? A Perfect Story, another one, stands out as the most watched Spanish series of the second half of the year in Netflix, with 24.4 million views. And 7 out of 10 of the most in-demand Spanish language movies are from Spain, no? Like Bayona Society of the Snow, My Fault, Robot Dreams, or Nowhere. So I think it is the perfect moment to be the country of honor.
Yeah, well, it certainly sounds like it. Now, back to ICEX again. Can you tell us a little bit about how ICEX is promoting the Spanish AV sector and talent?
Well, as I said before, intelligence, contacts, and talent. We are trying to raise awareness, international awareness of the talent and uniqueness of the Spanish audiovisual ecosystem by providing also Spanish agents in the industry with more business opportunities, intelligence, and content. And we aim to create a framework for companies to communicate their work and to find partners for producing and distributing their projects abroad. No, I think this is extremely important in a very competitive and dynamic context as the current one, as we said before. To innovate in production processes and enter new markets, companies need to constantly forge alliances and collaborate with other foreign partners. No, again, the spotlight at Mipcom represents a fabulous opportunity to enhance this visibility of a Spanish company and content. And it is well aligned with the ICEX strategy based on high impact actions, promoting visibility, networking, and co-production.
So we've spoken about many different really successful Spanish dramas that are going around the world right now. But what about attracting international investment into the Spanish AV sector? How's ICEX doing that?
So also by providing them with all the services with regards to information, relevant information, intelligence, contact, and talent. We offer a 360-degree support with a wide range of services, making it easier for international companies to come to Spain. No? Our services include ongoing assistance and cover various areas such as advice on setting up, tailored industry knowledge, institutional support, guidance for startups, connection to investors, and aftercare businesses. We have an international, as I said, the network of over 100 offices abroad, with 2 new dedicated audiovisual antennas experts, one in LA and another in Singapore, that are meant to be helping international investors that want to come to Spain. We have created the brand Shooting in Spain to promote the attraction of foreign audiovisual production in Spain. This year, we're attending more than 20 international markets to promote the sector and make first-hand contacts with potential investors and producers from all over the world. And we have also put in place the Spain Audiovisual Bureau, a single point of entry for foreign companies that resolve all their questions, their concerns about working in Spain, and also help Spanish companies gather information to operate internationally.
Well, you talk about shooting in Spain and Spain as a location. Why should the international content industry consider Spain as a destination for productions and investment?
So Spain today is already a highly recognized audiovisual hub. Many international titles, including major franchises like Star Wars or The Crown, have been filmed in our country. This undoubtedly highlights the immense technical and human talent behind our services companies, no? But what is the Spain deal package, which is, by the way, highly competitive and difficult to surpass? It includes, as I say, high-quality crews, top-tier studios and facilities, and fast-track work visas for sector professionals from abroad, top infrastructures, strategic locations, connectivity with more than 50 airports, second longest high-speed railway system worldwide, which is also very important. Obviously, legal certainty with adherence to European standards for intellectual property protection, which is in this sector very, very important. High standards of living and quality of life for the crews that have to come for the period of the filming. A privileged and diverse climate and sites for shooting, optimal collaboration ecosystems with institutional support and the highest level. And if all of what I've just mentioned is not enough, we have what I think is very interesting, also one of the best international tax incentives with even in Spain, no? 30% tax rebate for the first 1 million euro of expenditure in Spain, plus 25% thereafter, no? Which can even be higher with respect to certain regions such as the Canary Islands, Navarra, or the Basque Country. So with the possibility to increase that tax rebate. As I say, some facts that put into perspective what this package means. Spain is the fourth European producer of films and TV shows. In 2023, the total spending by foreign companies shooting in Spain was more than 200 million euro. Spain and the UK together represent almost 40% of global streamers' investment in European audiovisual work. So I think it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned tax incentives. I mean, I can certainly see those becoming an even more crucial part of content funding going forward as we're seeing lots of different challenges in the global content industry marketplace. Now, talking about challenges, what specifically do you think are the challenges that Spain's audiovisual industry faces in the future?
Well, I think, as we said, it is a very dynamic sector. There's a lot of competition, so a lot of challenges, no? Global competition. It's an industry that is becoming ever more global. And so we face, like any other big country on audiovisual, stiff competition from other hubs. But I think it's a good thing because it forces creativity, innovation, and excellency, no? Not only on the tax incentives, but I think on talent, on innovation, on technical innovation. On infrastructure, technology, we have to remain top of the class. We must also, and this is more something that the public administration must do, we have to communicate effectively Spain's unique benefits and continue to boost this international awareness, no? Another issue that I think is going to become more and more important is sustainability and environmental impact concerns. No, there is an increasing pressure to adopt and showcase sustainable practices within the industry and to attract eco-conscious investors and productions. So we need to emphasize that commitment on reducing the impact of filming activities. Now, also, we have to continue our effort on talent development and retention, producing, attracting, and retaining top talent. I think it's crucial for sustaining high quality productions and be appealing to international investors. We also must focus on developing our workforce and providing continuous training to meet evolving needs and new innovations and technology innovations in the industry. Thus, the challenges are numerous. We are living in a very interesting moment. Platforms, as I said at the beginning, are more selective when it comes to granting the green light. Audience attention is also more dispersed, more. There's much more offer, so competition is higher, budgets are tighter, and the market expects results more than ever. All of this, has fostered collaboration between players from different markets. Productions companies are seeking internationalization. Co-production agreements are a significant venue. And so that is where ICEX has to be in helping and supporting our Spanish audiovisual industry to get on the train of current trends and challenges. So we plan to continue the work started more than 20 years ago and strengthening during the last 3 years, as we said, to the Spain audiovisual hub of Europlan. So that's where we stand.
So just a few short weeks now to Mipcom, Elisa, where we're going to see Spain as country of honour at Mipcom. Thank you for joining us on telecast, and we really look forward to seeing you on the Quasset and talking more about the opportunities in working with Spain's AV sector with your colleagues on our live stream show. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you in Cannes.
Thank you for having me, and we'll see you in Cannes too. Can't wait.
We'll see you there. Well, that's about it for this week's show. We'll see you all on the Quasset at Mipcom in a few weeks' time. For more videos featuring the movers and shakers of the TV industry, just check Telecast TV on YouTube. Until next week, stay safe.